Hello there. I have a follow up from last week's video. So, last week I talked about limits, but in particular, I talked about sort of what a limit is not, right? So, rather than going into what a limit is and how to set it, we talked about, or actually, I talked about what a limit is not. I want to read you an email that I got back because I thought it was great. This woman wrote to me some other things too, but I'll just read you a bit of it. She said, I do have a hard time understanding your idea of limits. Are you saying that a limit isn't a limit unless it's accepted by the child? In the law, a speed limit tells you how fast you can go. A parking limit tells you how long you can stay in a place. It doesn't really matter whether we agree with it or not. There are consequences if we don't follow the rules. So she asked, how my ideas of limits relate to rules. So, um, in answer to her question, like, is a limit not a limit unless it's accepted by the child? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that if you think you're setting a limit, yet you're not getting the results that you want to be getting, you probably want to think about a different way to go about setting that limit. um, Sorry for the ringer in the background. Yeah, so it can be a limit if it works, but if it's not, then what we want to do is think about how we can go a little bit deeper with our child. So, what questions to ask? Are our expectations reasonable? Is what I'm asking of this child even reasonable in this moment? Is what I'm asking of this child reasonable for the developmental stage that the child is at? We need to ask these questions. Why is it hard? Why might it be hard for a child to follow through on, let's say, the request to pick the towel up off the bedroom floor? I think was the example that I gave last week. Something like that. So we want to go a little bit deeper into the why. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that with regard to the example of the cars and the parking and the speeding, we're talking about adults who have fully developed brains who are making choices about how they're, whether or not they're going to put enough money in the parking meter or drive the parking limit or not, or maybe they're just making a mistake. But with a kid, we're dealing with a child with somebody whose brain is not developed. Okay, and if they are showing us the same challenging behavior over and over again, then we need to think about a way to get creative to help them so that that behavior that's getting in the way of, say, them making friends or doing well in school or getting along with siblings or being able to cooperate with us, all of those things are getting in the way of them living a big life. And so if the behaviors getting in the way, then we want to think about what might be causing those, and so that we can come up with a strategy that allows us to build connection, which is the thing that's going to drive the change in the first place. So a limit isn't like forcing control over another person. When I talk about setting a limit with your sweet boy, I'm not talking about like, force him to do something. But sometimes we notice as a parent that they need help getting through something that they're struggling with, a resistance, a rigidity, and limits can really help us help them. So it's not about control over, it's really about helping them move to a place that's going to allow them to live a bigger, better life. Um, by the way, that's never consequences, because I'm going to get that in the next email, right? Consequences, I don't feel are ever in order. They do the exact opposite of what needs to happen in order for the behavior to change. So, for any behavior to change in our sweet boy, he needs to feel seen, heard, connected, like we get him. What a consequence does is isolate, right? It isolates us from one another, him from us from him. It inadvertently, we don't do this purposefully, but it inadvertently sends the message, hey, when you are good, I'm here, but when you're not, you're on your own, dude. Like, I'm not going to deal with you when you're like this. And we don't want to be sending that message. We do not want to be sending that message. We want to be sending the message that when life is hard, we are here. I'm here for you no matter what. So we need to remember that the child isn't the behavior. The behavior isn't the child. Even when the behavior is wonky, we still must continue to reach for that child, and to reach for them with love in a way that can help them live that bigger, better life. And sometimes that looks like a limit. All right, so I hope that's helpful. I would love to hear what you think about that one in the comments below, and I will see you next week. Bye.